Welcome back to Day 2 of the IIS's Global Insurance Forum. I'm Josh Landau, the president of the IIS. Now I would like to introduce a special segment of our program. Recently, we held an exclusive in-person event to honor the achievements of Larry Zimpleman and his induction into the Insurance Hall of Fame. Together with Principal Financial Group, we honored Larry before an audience of industry executives here in New York. Today, we will provide you a glimpse of this, featuring Larry in a one-on-one discussion with Pablo Antolin, principal economist, head of the private pensions unit, and deputy head of the OECD Consumer Finance, Insurance and Pension Division. Larry shares his thoughts on inflation, leadership, financial literacy, and the role of public and private sector, and more. We are so proud to include Larry in the Insurance Hall of Fame, alongside the giants of our industry. Congratulations, Larry. The Insurance Hall of Fame is the preeminent award in the industry, established to recognize leaders who have made lasting contributions to the industry and to the world. Leaders such as Larry Zimpleman. Larry, please join me on stage.
You know, I'm very humbled. I'm truly humbled. I just want to start by thanking the IIS. Josh, thank you. The Honors Committee who bestowed this honor on me. I feel very fortunate. And I had a great team. I want to start with the home team. This is where it gets emotional. Kathy, my wife, put your hand up. So that allowed me to do what I truly enjoy doing. Christopher, our son, is here. There he is. All right, hold his hand up. Oh. But thank you for being here, and then our sons, Jeff and Tom, as well. So thank you for that. I said it's a team sport. I had a great team at Principal. Actually, if you do the math, it's 45 years, just to get the math straight. And I loved every day of it. You know, we help people deal with the most difficult challenges of their life. And I don't take that, and I know you don't take that lightly. So I'll be cheering from the sideline. Hope I have a chance to visit with many of you. Again, thanks for coming, and thank you for the honor of a lifetime.
Larry and we met a few years ago, and every time I invited him to come to the OECD to support the work, to meet with the Secretary General and launch some of our work, he was quick to say, yes, I will be there, and for that I thank you enormously.
If you haven't, I would encourage you to go out to the OECD website and see some of the work that Pablo and his staff do. I would say today they're probably, from my perspective, maybe the preeminent authority on pension systems globally. Now, for many people, probably most of the people in this room, this is really the first time you've had to sit down and think about inflation. But there's a few of us, I see Norman, a few of us with very gray hair, that we've had to deal with this before. So this is not the first time that inflation has hit the world. And there are lessons, I think, to be learned from that. I started out in the day when inflation was 12%, short-term interest rates were 16, 17%, long-term interest rates were 14%. If you're an insurance company and you're operating on an aggregate crediting rate, when short-term rates have gone to 16 and you're crediting your customers 8 or 9, that's a problem. And so that's what drove all kinds of segmentation, asset liability management. We then went on a 40-year decline of interest rates that really separated out many of the traditional insurers, and as interest rates went lower and lower and lower and lower, brought in other entities with perhaps better capabilities than managing the traditional insurance portfolio. I started, it was mostly traditional insurance companies managing traditional insurance portfolios. Today we have insurance portfolios, but much more involvement by, if you will, non-insurance entities because of the continuing low interest rate. Now we'll see how all that plays out, over time. In the retirement space, again, when I started, first of all, it was a defined benefit world. And there were a lot of asset managers playing in that world, and then there were a few of us, like Principal at the time, that were playing in that world because we weren't playing with the endowments and the big funds. We were playing with small, medium business. And that was really, kind of our niche. That got disrupted quickly in 1981, as I'm sure most people here know, when 401k came along and the defined contribution world took off. And I think we, like many insurance companies, really scrambled to figure out how we could take advantage of this new thing called 401k and defined contribution. The mutual funds were much better suited to thrive in that environment than insurance companies were. So they came in hard during the 80s and 90s, and the insurance players, I think, including Principal, really had to up our game. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here forward. Are we really at the bottom of interest rates and things are going to go up from here, or what is going to happen?
What other challenges do you see on that, or how those challenges are going to transform the industry?
In my judgment, we still have a lot of work to do in at least two areas. The first one is just generally in financial literacy. We see every day the damage that is done caused by the lack of financial literacy. And we shouldn't really be surprised at that, although I think we continue to say we're surprised at that, because we don't teach it. Find me a school that has courses in financial literacy. Last I checked, of the 50 U.S. states, the states, by the way, set the educational requirements in every state for you to graduate from high school. Only about 27 states even have anything that mentions financial literacy as a part of the required curriculum. So I just want to take at least 30 seconds and encourage all of you, to the extent this resonates, to get involved at the state and local level and go look at what your state or your neighboring states require in terms of financial literacy. I think you're going to be shocked, frankly, with how little is there, and then think about the damage that is done over one's lifetime because they don't understand how to balance a checkbook or what a mortgage is, or that's how we got in the home equity line of credit problem, all that kind of stuff. So that's one issue that I think we still, as a nation, have to deal with, and as an industry have to deal with. The other one I would say that I would challenge people in this room and others is really, we still have to solve the decumulation problem. Target date funds solved in many respects, were a big piece of the answer on the accumulation side. Kind of the set it and forget it sort of thing. How do we get the reverse to also work? And again, I think it's a great area for innovation. We have many more tools to deal with it.
I know we have had in conversation, you and I in the past, is the role of the private and public partnership in retirement, but in many, many other issues. I would like to hear your insights on that.
Yeah. Big problems demand public-private partnerships. It's almost inevitable. The problem is just too big. And I could argue getting people to save enough money to be secure in retirement is a problem that's probably even bigger than the industry. And so I think in the case of retirement, I mean, I think the role of public, in my view, is a couple, some of which I've already mentioned, but one is to have a coherent sort of tax policy around their pension system. I think trying to get policymakers to understand the different policy options and to adapt to the one that is most appropriate based on whatever their domestic tax policy and other things might be, I think that's critical. So the public-private partnership involves making sure you have the right sort of tax policy and tax incentives around it. Again, the second piece, I know I'm a bit redundant here, but I do think it's worth underlining, of the public part of public-private partnerships is around more requirements on financial literacy and, frankly, more, if you will, PSAs, more promotion by public entities of the role of financial literacy and the importance of financial literacy. I think those are proper roles for government, for the public to think about. The good news is, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily costly. Most of the time when the public part doesn't live up to their obligations, it's because they don't have the money to do it. And I don't know that it's necessarily a money issue. I remember studies that have been done of the tax incentives we use here in the United States, and for every dollar of front-end tax incentive that the U.S. government provides, they will collect back $4 in tax revenue. Now, it may be 20 or 30 years down the road when they collect their $4, and probably that means there's a different president and a different, members of Congress and all of that, which could be a problem. But it's not that it costs the U.S. government money. In fact, it'll be the pension system we have today, the 401k system, will be the biggest source of revenue, single biggest source of revenue for the federal government going forward.
I would like just one final question to give us some advice for all of us going forward.
I'm gonna tilt the question slightly, and people have asked me, well, what's the best career advice that you ever received? There's two that actually have stuck with me, and that I tried to implement as best I could when I was at Principal. And in and of himself, he was an outside consultant. In and of himself, he was not very memorable, with one exception. And I remember that he said to me, just remember, you need them a lot more than they need you. Now, he was talking about that in the context of my employees, right? I need my employees a lot more than they need me. The second one is one I'm going to ask everybody in the audience, and if you've heard me ask this, you can't give it away. But I was asked, what's the most important word in the English language? The answer to the question is your first name. Your first name. If you can grab that first name, and if you can say that back to them, it's amazing how powerful that is, right? So every element, I always try to do my best. No, nobody's going to be perfect. Always try to do my best to see if I could figure out and call people by name.
Thank you very much, Larry. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Pablo.
Thank you.